Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm State Senator Susan Rubio. I represent the 22nd Senate District in the San Gabriel Valley, and I'm so honored to stand here with a group of incredible leaders in the space of domestic violence. And so I'm so honored that they've come from many places to be here because it's such an important issue. And I really just want to say that domestic violence is a silent epidemic. It touches lives across our country, impacting millions of families. It's a complex issue, shrouded in shame and fear, yet we cannot afford to be silent. There's a lot of victims in this group, including myself, and we all know very well what it is to have to carry the silence, the shame, and you're always trying to ensure that you're brave enough to make it another day. So today, again, I'm thankful that all of you are here because we're fighting for something extremely critically important. If we don't do something about this, we continue to lose lives. And you'll hear in a minute, not just adults. Children are suffering the consequences of domestic violence. Domestic violence is not just physical abuse, it includes coercive control, which is psychological abuse, manipulation. It includes financial abuse, controlling behaviors, intimidation, and threats. Domestic violence abuse does not discriminate, and we know that. It touches every single socioeconomic status, every ethnicity, gender, race. Everyone can fall victim of domestic violence. As a result of domestic violence cases, many, as I stated before, can be fatal. That is why I'm so thankful for my partners here with me today, Esme Biano and the I'm Not Okay movement, who's been a partner with me since 2019, and we've been trying over and over to ensure that victims have enough time to heal. My Sister's House, Crime Victims Alliance, California Protective Parents Association, California District Attorneys Association, and the Center for Judicial Excellence. I want to also give a special thank you to Evan Rachel Wood, who could not be here with us today, who was also a strong advocate and partner with me when we started this mission in 2019. She was instrumental in getting this piece of legislation passed the first time around, when we increased the statute of limitation to 5 years. So again, we want to make sure that we acknowledge her work and her dedication to this issue. We're here today to push for SB 690, a bill that is critical to ensure victims have the ability to come forward and seek justice by extending the statute of limitation now to 15 years for victims to come forward. I have been pushing for policies regarding domestic violence for the last 5 years, and it hasn't been easy. 5 years is just not enough. It is nearly impossible for this process to be prescribed in just 5 years. I always talk about the victims and the human beings behind this issue. We want to tell victims to walk away within 5 years so that you can seek justice. But I have to acknowledge the little lives we've lost because victims did what we told them to do. I want to acknowledge Ana Esteves, who walked away within the 5 years. Her little boy, Piki, was murdered by his father because he was resentful and wanted to harm Ana for walking away. I want to acknowledge Ileana. Ileana lost her 3 little girls here in Sacramento, Samia, Samara, and Samantha. Again, she did what we told her to do. She walked away within 5 years, and her 3 little girls were murdered by their father. So we cannot sit here and tell victims what's right for them. They need to decide when it's safe, when it's okay for them to walk away without being harmed. And it is time that we stop telling victims again, when it's right for them. So 15 years is going to be critically important because victims need time to assess their situation, understand the harm that their children and their families are in, and have time to heal, get counseling, prepare themselves. There's a lot of things that they have to do in order to be safe. So once again, 15 years is a must. Take Cassie Ventura's case, for example, the most recent public case that showed a video footage from 8 years ago, which unfortunately does not fall under the current 5-year statute of limitations. If you saw that video, you saw a victim being dragged, pulled, slapped, kicked. We all saw it. Assaulting a person is a crime, but yet she could not seek justice because 5 years were up. A bill like this would have helped her seek justice. And over, abusers will repeat, if I'm guilty, then why am I not in jail? If I'm guilty, why didn't they call the police? What they failed to tell the public is that the statute of limitations is up, and some of us cannot seek justice because it's too late. So allowing survivors of domestic violence the time it takes to recover and heal is paramount. We need to educate and encourage people to see through the lens of a victim and what they have to endure. The legal system surrounding domestic violence is flawed and still is designed to protect our abusers. But I will not give up the fight. I will continue to empower victims of domestic violence to continue to come forward, advocate, stay strong, and join our movement. By extending the statute of limitations, we will allow victims of trauma to fully recover. And no one knows the trauma, only the victim. They need to be able to seek the help they need without us telling them when it's their time. Not only am I here to talk about protecting victims of domestic violence, but also emphasizing the importance of protecting funding for domestic violence survivors and providers of crime and prevention programs. This past June, we allocated $103 million to fill the gap needed to protect victims in critical programs across our state. With the help of my colleagues in the legislature, we are pushing bills like AB 1956 that will allocate critical state funds in the future if federal funding is not available, and other bills like AB 2432 to establish a dedicated crime victims fund under the state treasury. As a victims advocate and a state senator, I feel that I have the responsibility to use my position, my voice, my experience to continue to empower domestic violence survivors and to ensure that domestic violence programs continue to get the funding they need to protect victims, children, and families. By working together, we can shatter that silence, support victims, and hold abusers accountable. I always like to finish with, we hear you, we believe you, and we will not stop fighting for you. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Esme Biano to join me. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Esme Biano, and I am a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault. There are many reasons it can take a survivor so long to report the crimes perpetrated against them. Victim blaming, stigma, fear, the effects of trauma. It took me 7 years. For those 7 years, I lived with a deep-seated feeling of dis-ease that I was unable to put my finger on. It manifested in night terrors, disordered eating, chronic insomnia, missed work opportunities, and the symptoms of what at the time was undiagnosed PTSD. When the Me Too movement erupted and I saw a survivor of my same abuser name what she had experienced as domestic violence, my world started crumbling around me. Through therapy, I was able to start talking about my past experience with my abuser, describing the way in which he had psychologically and physically tortured me, controlled what I ate and if I slept, threatened my life, isolated me from those who tried to protect me, raped me. It took me many months to name it domestic violence. I had to unpack the shame and the self-blame, learning the way in which the trauma had altered my brain. I sought legal counsel to make sure this didn't happen to any other women, only to be told that the statute of limitations on domestic violence crimes had expired, and my ability to get justice had timed out. I was horrified. I'm a white woman of great privilege who mercifully never had children with a man who abused me. I have the means to seek therapy, a platform on which to speak. Millions of survivors do not carry this privilege. And as well as having the burden of trauma and healing, they need time to safely leave, to find shelter, financial security, fight for custody of their children. They might have to overcome distrust of authorities and legal systems who have historically failed them. They might just be too damn scared. It was from that experience that the first Phoenix Act was born. Together with a small group of survivors and Senator Susan Rubio, we set out to prevent other survivors from being told that their healing had not conformed to an arbitrary timeline. The Phoenix Act 2.0 will further expand the statute of limitations to 15 years. And I am here today to support Senator Rubio as we fight to give survivors the time they need to escape their abusers, name what has happened to them, and find the strength and courage to get justice. Justice for domestic violence should know no time limit. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Yen Marshall.
Thank you, Esme. Thank you, Senator Rubio, for your continued efforts in fighting for survivors of domestic violence. Good morning. My name is Yen Marshall. I'm the CEO of My Sister's House. The mission of My Sister's House is to serve Asian and Pacific Islander and other underserved women and children impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. We do that by providing a culturally appropriate and responsive safe haven, legal and mental health support, job training, and community services. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, our organization, like others, was dramatically impacted. Nonprofits rely on funding to support survivors. As the need for services increased, we faced fundraising challenges. Now the pandemic is over, but we're still recovering from those challenges. The importance of SB 690 is crucial for victims of domestic violence. As we all know and heard, drama has no limit. There's no time limit at all. We have seen clients who have been with My Sister's House for years overcome the highest hurdles in their lives. And then all it takes is just certain triggers. It will come back unexpectedly. And the drama and all the pain and suffering, they all come flooding back. And how do you deal with it without a support system and a chance of really to tell your whole story? So we are very grateful for the strong community support and the leadership of Senator Rubio. And we could not do what we do without the support. We are honored to be standing here today alongside Senator Rubio and others who are tirelessly pushing forward the significant legislative efforts in California to help our survivors. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Maravic Maan. She's the former chief of California State Domestic Violence Coalition.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos días a todos. I'm Maravic Maan, the former head of the California State Domestic Violence Coalition and the board president of the Center for Judicial Excellence. For far too long, domestic violence crime has existed without enough systems of change. As long as women are still in fear of violence, there is so much more we need to do. SB 690 is the proper step right now to help all survivors of domestic violence as well as perpetrators of domestic violence. And why do I say that? The perpetrators of domestic violence need that additional time to be held accountable, to go through the batterers program, as well as pay for their crimes, as well as seek help and therapy for what they have committed. Every year, we also have children who are suffering from domestic violence, and that has been the secret and the lack of attention. Over 58,000 children are placed in the custody of the inappropriate parent, according to the Leadership Council based in on the East Coast, Maryland. And so children are then also exposed, as Senator Rubio said, to the violence of the parent, the perpetrating parent. And we need protective parents to provide that help. And domestic violence survivors need that additional time in order to seek justice. And first, they're fleeing. The time they're fleeing domestic violence is the most dangerous time in a woman's life. And that time is needed to go to a shelter like my sister's house and or other shelters around the country. We have done so much since the passage of the Violence Against Women's Act. It has been reauthorized recently, but there's still so much more to do. The Center for Judicial Excellence issued its child homicide report. You can look it up at www.centerforjudicialexcellence.org. And we have stories and data on the children being killed in domestic violence. And this is another reason why that protection is needed, to bring children to safety, as well as, again, to bring the perpetrators to be held them accountable. But they too need help, they too need services, but they need to be held accountable. And that time of 15 years will allow all the services that are needed to be put in place, or to be for systems to adjust towards those changes. I think as long as women are living in the fear of violence, there is still so much more each of us can do. And Senator Susan Rubio has been a champion for domestic violence prevention in this state as well as in the country. She and I were in Washington, D.C. to unveil the Child Safety Homicide Report in the last fall. And we are working on federal measures to also increase safety of both children and domestic violence survivors at the national level. But right now, we need this bill here in California passed, as well as the protection of ongoing protection of survivors in our state. States around the country have their own domestic violence, state domestic violence coalitions, and those are critical change agents to ensure that policy changes and systems changes are happening at the state level. California has been a leader and in the forefront of domestic violence, and we need to continue to be that leader to show the rest of the world what else needs to be done. It is our sacred commitment to keep children and women safe at all times. Thank you.
Really briefly, I want to say some words in Spanish for those that speak Spanish. Buenos días, soy la senadora Susan Rubio, represento el Distrito 22 en el Valle de San Gabriel. Y ahorita estamos unidos para promover el proyecto de ley SB 690, se llama Phoenix Act 2.0. Este proyecto de ley va a darle a víctimas de violencia doméstica más tiempo para sanar, dejar una situación peligrosa y someter cargos. Actualmente en el estado de California se les dan 5 años. Muchas víctimas han salido de esas situaciones en 5 años y aún así los que las golpean han matado a sus hijos, nada más para lastimarlos. Y no podemos dictar cuándo sale una víctima de esa situación. Tienen que dejar esa situación que es violencia en el tiempo que ellos crean que es sano y salvo para salir de esa situación. Queremos extender el tiempo que tienen las víctimas a 15 años. Para esas víctimas que nos escuchan, que ahorita están sufriendo en silencio, por favor, queremos que sepan que aquí estamos para ayudarles. Les escuchamos, les creemos, y si pasa este proyecto de ley, van a tener hasta 15 años para someter cargos, para darles tiempo que sanen, que tengan a su familia sanos y salvos y que puedan salir de esa situación sin preocuparse que el tiempo que tienen para someter cargos va a expirar. Muchas gracias. Thank you everyone for joining us here today, and we'll take a couple questions if anyone has any questions from any of us up here. Okay, thank you very much. And any of us will be available for any separate interviews on the side. And have a wonderful day today. Thank you.